Due to recent developments, I have 7 goals to achieve today, or rather 7 points to make in the wrap-up speech. Firstly, thank you to Leader for her comments and her thanks. I really cannot agree more. What we do here will not be possible without the quiet work of so many behind the scenes. Whether in big or small ways, it matters. Similarly, as we set forth and translate these policies into action, the work of so many on the ground ensure that they are not just words, but deeds. I had lunch yesterday with our Kids Start team, the families, the children, under their Healthy with Kids Start What's for Lunch series. It was sponsored by Prudential. I was hugely encouraged by every parent I spoke to who found the program so very useful to their parenting journey. They are grateful to our Kids Start practitioners, like Ms. Pergo, whom I met, who visit them at work, who visit them at home to work with them. And we have partners like Prudential, who sponsor important programs like that of providing food and nutrition for the families. We have folks like Huda Ali, who come on board as hosts for cooking programs, along with Chef Maslan, to help families learn how to cook in nutritious and delicious ways, because families often think that healthy food equals expensive food. But they actually go the extra mile too. Huda, for example, brings her son to demonstrate how parents can involve their children when cooking at home, how to put into practice the techniques that are taught by Kids Start on conversing with their children during such activities. We almost never see these actions, and they go beyond the policies that we launch here. And these folks play such critical roles to make sure that we are not just going through motions. Now, this is a significant strength of ours here in Singapore that we must never take for granted. In many places, many of you have lived and worked abroad, you will know that things do not always get realized. So thank you to all who play an important role. Secondly, for all the sound and fury, which I have to admit this year was relatively genteel and civilized, so please keep it that way, there is actually more agreement and alignment than not. And to be honest, there is no way, and in all our respective organizations we know that, there is no way that every single person would agree with every single thing. Not within government, nor the opposition, nor society at large. And this is natural and is to be expected. We all have different views, needs, wants. But we do need to articulate them as clearly as we can, forcefully, passionately, in Parliament. But when the dust has settled, I think it's important for us to agree to disagree in areas that we don't find agreement on, but also come together, unite, and support a shared agenda so that we can move forward decisively together. And if you cast your eyes back to not just this budget, but the budgets preceding this, and certainly all the budgets that I've presided over, there's really a lot more alignment than disagreement. And I thank you for that. Thirdly, I'm struck by what NMP Cheng Sing Yao had just shared. And I believe there is a resonance with many, and his speech bears listening to again, and to be read as well, and with leaders' response. And there are some valuable thoughts for all of us to ponder. What kind of parliamentarians and leaders do we want to be here in this chamber? What kind of leaders do we want as citizens? Because how we respond and signal will shape the type of people we choose and how they in turn choose to behave. But notwithstanding that, I think we all here have choices to make too. Mr. Cheng shared a few principles to guide us. I will work on that and offer perhaps 3 themes related in some ways to think about. So my 4th point really is about what are our thoughts on the issue of form versus substance. Now, we live in a very visual world fueled by social media. Attention span can be frightfully short. Policies are TLDR, too long, didn't read. And if the form and style appeal, does that trump substance? If a person is deemed cool, so does that mean that what he or she says must be right? We see how this phenomenon manifests itself all around the world. It's not meant as a criticism. It's an observation that I think we all note and see. But is this happening here as well? Does it worry us? Should it worry us? And are we as citizens concerned enough to do something about it? And if indeed so, what exactly should we do? Fifth, what are our thoughts on facts versus perceptions and emotions? I shared last year, and I'll say that again. We live in a world where there is far more information than there's ever been in history, and this will increase exponentially. But we are not necessarily better informed. Are we evidence-based? Are we facts-driven? And truth be told, most of us don't often read everything. And because we have such a high level of education, we're educated, we think we know, we scan, and I think we form opinions very quickly. And if you touch your hearts, I think many of us could be guilty of that too. So storytelling is important, and we know it's an important tool, and we use that quite regularly in Parliament. But we also know it's powerful because it stirs emotions. We have seen stories that are being shared that are, well, sometimes not quite true, or half true, or presented without the proper context. In Brexit, and I think it's been clearly documented without dispute, how various parties on both ends, or multiple ends, made campaign statements that are clearly false. And there are real-life outcomes that result from this environment. So again, we need to ask ourselves, should we be concerned? Is this already happening here? How do we respond? 6, I often run leadership and related workshops, whether in the SAF, civil service, social, private sector, universities. And amongst the various questions I often would ask of our leaders or would-be leaders is that, do we aim to do what is right or to do what is popular? Do we do the hard right or the easy wrong? And I believe that all of us know what the correct answer is and should be. But given the earlier few points that I mentioned and what we see happening around the world, what do we as leaders in the political environment, what should we do? Do we pander to popular sentiments knowing that it actually does work? Or do we try to make what we believe would be right, but perhaps a less popular decision? Do we promise dreams that cannot be fulfilled because we know that we don't have to actually do it for real? Truth is, this is probably the norm in most societies. So the question again is, what do we want for our own society here in Singapore? For the 7th and last point, I think I just want to end and say that I really do feel that our best days are ahead of us. Yes, we are, like every country, buffeted by the same pressures, similar to many other societies and parliaments. And it can seem overwhelming. When we look at the disruptions, we seem to be recovering from COVID, and then there's a war, and high inflation, etc., etc. And we also know that we are not perfect. Because if we really want to nitpick, there are lots of things that we can criticize. Either we do it publicly or we do it privately. There are many areas that we can improve. There are things that we can do better. And certainly all of us can lead better. But to be fair to ourselves, we are not a bad spot. We are in a decent place. In fact, more than a decent place. We're not falling apart as a nation or as a society. When I work with foreign counterparts, as many of you do, when we meet Singaporeans living abroad, it is clear that we have a strong reputation and standing. And if anything, it has grown stronger after the whole COVID situation. This did not happen by chance. And where we are, our standing, our reputation, the way we are valued and respected, all these have been achieved despite the limitations that we sometimes see in ourselves. So the question is, can you imagine how much further we can go? How much better we can be if we begin to iron out the kinks, if we begin to actively seek to improve and to develop better leaders at all levels? There are far greater heights that we can climb. And we can all do even better for our people and our nation. And I think that's what's before us here in the chambers. Yes, we cannot and should not take it for granted. But we have an incredible base to build on. This year's budget is yet another foundational piece to stage us for the better years ahead. And we are all part of this journey together. Every Singaporean who plays their part, big or small, makes that difference. Like those involved in the Kids Start program, and it is completely evidence-based. The impact on our families and their children will last a lifetime. So let's all do what we can. Let's all just try our very best. Thank you very much. Order. We do have some time savings, so I'll do what's popular and rate the time reserves. Propose to take a break now. I suspend the sitting and will generously take the chair at 5 p.m. Order, order.